What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with Kwame Jackson and Miss Tracy Pennywell. Now they're going to talk to us about not only their program, HBCU Heroes. It's something you guys want to know about because you know how I feel about the HBCUs. I really believe that a lot of us should go to the HBCUs, but there's some things that's preventing that. And we're going to talk about that today. And also, Kwame was on The Apprentice as well with Donald Trump. So we'll get into talking about both of those things. But Kwame and Tracy, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, Kwame, can you tell people a little bit about yourself, like kind of, you know, where you come from? Because, you know, be some people first time, you know, being introduced to you.
Well, we appreciate you having us on the African Diaspora channel. For us, we are part of HBCU Heroes, and I am the corporate partnership lead for HBCU Heroes. An organization is dedicated to leveling the playing field between PWIs, predominantly white institutions, and HBCUs, specifically for student athletes. So if you think of UNCF or you think of Thurgood Marshall College Fund, we are the exact same thing, except younger, except a little bit more nimble, and specifically focused on student athletes and getting them facilities, uniforms, travel equipment, scholarships, computers, everything to level that playing field between, you know, the big D1 PWIs and HBCUs. I got on my Howard Bison shirt today because I'm the proud son of 2 Howard University graduates. In fact, behind me are my dad's diplomas from Howard University Med School. And so I'm here on behalf of HBCU Heroes. My background is, I like to say, I was born in DC, raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, and made in NYC. I was in New York City for the last 20 years as an entrepreneur, working for Goldman Sachs on Wall Street. And then right after that, did the first season of The Apprentice, as you mentioned. But I'm a Carolina boy at heart and a proud HBCU supporter, and happy to be here.
All right, so Miss Tracy, you know, people see you on, you know, there as well. Like, say, you tell people just a little bit about your background and say, well, who's the lady down there? Because, you know, people, they are inquisitive.
Well, thank you so much for having me as well, Phil. Like Kwame, myself, our other partner, George Lynch, who isn't here with us today, but George, myself, and Kwame all went to UNC Carolina, North Carolina. We all say that the reason that we started HBCU Heroes is because anybody can be an HBCU hero. We give of our time, of our efforts, of our resources to make sure that not only that we level the playing field, but right now we're actually doing a voter registration drive as well, Adopt an HBCU. I have been, same as Kwame, an entrepreneur, and I own a social media marketing company, and just proud supporter of HBCUs. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, so I know all about Aggie pride. If I had to adopt an HBCU just because of where I grew up, that's the one it would be. I'm a North Carolina A&T Aggie pride girl.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned North Carolina A&T because, you know, my daughter, she really wanted to go to North Carolina A&T. Is she there right now? No, she isn't. You know, we was at the time period, you know, she run the track and, you know, she, you know, definitely was looking for, you know, hopefully people to reach out with scholarships, and not one HBCU reached out. But the one that did reach out was a PWI, a smaller one, but a PWI. I was telling you up front, they gave her a track scholarship and also an academic scholarship to go to the college that she at now. But she originally wanted to go to North Carolina A&T. She was reaching out, heard nothing. And this has happened to a lot of kids that I know that actually do sports, and they get no call backs, no, you know, recruiters, or even, like I said, my partner of mine, he said, look, even right here in Houston, you know, you got TSU. Why aren't they even reaching out to the local talent? They say not even going to somewhere else, just even in your local cities that you may have some kids. So what's going on with that? Why aren't they like trying to recruit?
Let me answer this for you, Phil. I'm going to say this because of my experience with George Lynch, who's our business partner. George was highly recruited, one of the #1 recruits when he came out of high school, an All-American, McDonald's All-American, and all of that good stuff. He was not recruited by HBCUs either, even though 2 of his uncles went to St. Aug and wanted him to go to St. Aug. The problem, I think, is a lot of times HBCUs feel that they don't have the facilities and they don't have the equipment and resources to court someone on those levels, just because you know, they don't have the scholarship levels and that sort of thing. What we try to do here is bring a visibility and awareness to that, because some of the time where we're at right now today is you can get these athletes, these elite athletes, if you will, to come to an HBCU, but you do have to, you got to back it up. You got to be able to provide the facilities and all of that. And we just don't have in our HBCUs sometimes the resources and the facilities. That's why we have to give back. That's why we created HBCU Heroes, because we as a culture, we've got to give back to our HBCUs, whether we went there or not. We got to be able to fund them. We have to be able to bring visibility and awareness. If you work in a corporation, you got to be able to reach back to an HBCU and give some of that scholarship money to them instead of giving 100% of it into the PWIs. That's really where the problem is. It's the lack of visibility and funding, which creates a lack of resources.
And Phil, can I jump in and add to what Tracy was saying there?
You go ahead.
We were inspired a lot by Steph Curry. So Steph Curry, about a year and a half ago, gave $1 million to Howard University. Steph did not go to Howard University. He did not have a direct connection to Howard University, but he met a young man who was on the golf, who was experienced in golf and interested in golf on the road, and he was a Howard University graduate. And the young man told him that at Howard, they no longer have a golf program. And so Steph got to know this young man, made a connection personally, and decided to give $1 million to bring back the golf program at Howard University. It was all over the media, ESPN, Forbes, all these big outlets, and it inspired a lot of people. So when we saw that and what George Lynch, our co-founder, was doing, he was coaching at Clark Atlanta University, head men's basketball coach. He saw that the players didn't have appropriate uniforms, travel money, shoes, all kinds of issues, computers. And so he was trying to do that on a very local level, along with Tracy, with their Arts for Athletes initiative. And we started to build on that initiative to make it into a national thing, to see that HBCUs are underfunded across the board. And you talked about your daughter not getting the recruiting attention they need, but we all know that recruiting is driven by budgets. And you got to have somebody who's a scout, who's out there talking to kids, who's hitting them up on social media, who's kind of bringing them into the fold. And a lot of HBCUs just don't have those facilities or resources or funding. So HBCU Heroes is specifically dedicated to leveling that playing field so that that next athlete coming behind your daughter can make a more informed decision to say, hey, maybe I should be considering an HBCU, and the HBCU can do their part to reach out to someone like your daughter. I know just this year, one of the biggest recruits in basketball in the country signed with Howard University and kind of changed the paradigm on big time D1 recruits going to HBCUs. And so you're going to start to see, I think, more and more of that as people start to reinvest in these institutions. But I agree with you, historically, they haven't had the resources, the time, the funding, the interest to do their parts and compete successfully against D1s with kind of one hand behind their back.
Well, so let me ask you a question about some of that. And now I'm gonna get into Mr. Trump here. What did he sign for HBCUs recently? Because I saw the picture of all those HBCU players.
There was a funding bill that the president gave to HBCUs. I don't know the specifics. I personally, I'm a nonpartisan when it comes to HBCU Heroes, but my background as a political commentator and my experience with Mr. Trump kind of prior to that, I'm just not a firm believer that was a firm program for HBCUs, and I felt like it was much more of a photo op when I saw that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so based on your experience with Donald Trump, from what you've seen in the past, I mean, it's not nobody you can really trust. Is that about what we could really say?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm speaking as a nonpartisan with HBCU Heroes today, but my past experience with Mr. Trump, I haven't been a fan. I think that it's somebody who's out to kind of, influence positively our community, or someone who really understands the issues that you see in our community. You just saw the other night on ABC, there was a big town hall with Mr. Trump. There are a lot of African Americans who asked him questions about healthcare, about ending, Make America Great Again, and other issues, and how that affects and makes African Americans feel. And a lot of those questions just went kind of, right over his head. And so that's unfortunate. But like I said, I wanted to kind of be nonpartisan on this and give you just my past experience.
But can I say this, Phil, because
Go ahead, Miss Tracy.
I know Kwame, because Kwame and I are best friends too, like me, Kwame, and George. We have seen where Kwame has come out and said some things that were nonpartisan, which you probably won't share here today. But I got to second his emotion on his experience from off camera, Kwame. I think what Phil is asking you is your off camera experience, and what do you think about the whole Mr. Trump?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to answer. I mean, you're my co-founder, so I'm not speaking on behalf of HBCU Heroes. If you're asking me from an individual standpoint, I've been a political commentator for over a decade for CNN and MSNBC. If you Google, you will see in YouTube and all kinds of places my interviews about Mr. Trump and how I feel about it. And I'm just a pretty strong, someone who stands against him. I just don't believe in his leadership. I don't believe in his principles. I don't believe in his code of ethics. I don't believe in his lack of affirmation of Black people and the fact that we've been, traditionally marginalized. I don't think that he understands the current state of where we are in racial justice and the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Trayvon Martin, and really understanding we're at this big racial reckoning moment that he just doesn't comprehend, he doesn't empathize with. And in fact, I feel like he wants to bring the country back in another way. But that's my Kwame Jackson hat as a political commentator, not my HBCU Heroes hat.
Well, I mean, you are just only kind of saying so how most of us feel, but I see Miss Tracy down there, and I get to that big word that she has on her shirt. That's a sensitive topic right now with a lot of people at the grassroots level and a lot of younger Black people's that 4-letter word that she has on her shirt. Because even that same woman, I think that you're talking about, that asked a question about healthcare down from the town hall, when she even got an interview on CNN, she was saying the exact same things that a lot of people say now. It's like, well, what is the point? Of that 4-letter word on our sister's shirt. I mean, like, what do we? I mean, because we've been doing that for 50 years. Where has this gotten us? We're in a progressively worse position now, if you look at the numbers, and we've been voting faithfully for one party, of course. Well, we've been voting faithfully for the past 50 years. What are we gonna get out that deal? Because a lot of people, including myself, I promote my votes are for sale. If you give something to the Black community, then hey, I will listen to you. But if you're not going to give anything, okay, well, go on. Yeah,
and I saw her interview. The lady was a middle-aged woman who was from the Philadelphia area, I believe. She's a professor at a smaller university in Pennsylvania, and she did an after interview after her presentation to President Trump. And one of the interesting things she said was she left there crying. She said she left there crying and frustrated because she felt like he did not understand what she was saying, did not understand the issues, did not empathize with her personal medical condition that she was talking about, but also the fact that she was a government and civics professor, I think political science. And she was saying, I tell my students all the time the importance of voting, the importance of, kind of pushing this baton forward, but I left there just frustrated. And I think what she was saying was her tank was on empty. And a lot of times, sometimes my tank gets on empty, and a lot of us, our tank gets on empty. But, we're about the spirit of John Lewis, and John Lewis was all about making good trouble. We all know about his history in the civil rights movement and how he never lost faith, even towards the very end, standing in Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C., when he knew he was facing the demons of cancer. And so I think if you can look at somebody who got beaten in the head, who walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, who'd been arrested 40 times and was still faithful about voting, about our power as citizens, about our ability to, put things on the ballot and drive an agenda. I think that gives me a lot of inspiration. And so, I personally vote not for myself. I vote for John Lewis. I vote for Trayvon Martin. I vote for Mike Brown. I vote for Breonna Taylor. I vote for all the people who sacrificed and gave me an opportunity to be here. So it's not so much about Kwame and my agenda. It's really just, for me, about respecting my ancestors and knowing that there's so many people who were deprived. And yes, it's not overnight. And I know we're reviewing some of the same issues as before, but this whole thing is a marathon. It's the whole Martin Luther King quote, which is, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. It's a long arc. And we might not see things in our generation. We might not even see things in the next generation. But with those small incremental processes over time gives us eventually change and hopefully makes America live up to its promise. And that's why I'm so passionate about political activism, about social justice, and about encouraging young HBCU students through our current Adopt an HBCU voter drive to get out there and be part of the process. Because they always say, you're either going to be, part of the discussion or you're going to be on the menu. And if you're not part of the discussion, you're going to be on the menu. And so I think that voting gives us a chance to be part of the discussion. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
All right. Well, since we're going to go there, okay, I wasn't going to try to, but since Ms. Tracy, since we're going to go there, a lot of people, including myself, have seen this system is rigged. Okay, it's rigged against Black Americans. We have been part of the process. We have voted. We have voted in large numbers. We have been the most patriotic people in this country. We built this country. Okay, and I've heard that comment many times. Well, we don't vote. We can't be part of the conversation. At the end of the day, we talked about daily, whether we're there or not. Let's call it what it is, right? And our biggest issue and problem that we have is we can't vote out white supremacy. We're trying to go through white supremacy to change white supremacy. It's not going to happen. When people talk about police reform, you're not going to reform the police when the entity was created to hunt down slaves, to capture slaves, and they're still doing it now. Look at the prison population. Look at the 13th Amendment, how they never really got rid of the slavery clause. They just kind of transferred it from a private slave holder to a state slave holder. Okay, it's wrong when they do a lot of our brothers and sisters in these prisons and lock them up for nothing. We can't vote that out. My thing is, what I'm seeing right now in the streets and with the pressures being applied to politicians, voting didn't do that. It didn't. Our economy, we can't vote for that because these politicians aren't for me and you. And they could give us all this smoke and mirrors, but what I'm liking today, brother, is that people are saying, no. What's the point of being part of a system that's literally delegitimized?
I agree with that.
Against us.
I agree with that, but I think that everything is in pieces, Bill. So voting is a piece as much as protest is a piece, as much as economic advancement is a piece, as much as political awareness is a piece. Everything is in pieces and they all build on each other. So you can't just go out in the streets and have a revolution and think that, that's going to be the only solution. You can't just go to the ballot box and think that that's going to be the only solution. And a lot of times people don't understand that voting is not just some big national miracle. Like, I voted for Obama and now everything's going to be better. No, voting means getting involved on the very local level. Who is going to be our sheriff? Who is going to be our district attorney?
And
who is going to be the people who brings charges so that Breonna Taylor her murder is prosecuted? So you have to vote for those people on a very local level so that you can change things in your community. But it's not the only solution. It's a piece. And to say that that piece doesn't matter at all, it's like saying you can drive a car with 3 wheels. You got to have 4 wheels. And so it's like every wheel matters as you drive that car. Voting, economic participation, protest, the engine for the car, everything.
And also, too, I was talking with my dad yesterday about this whole thing of, he feels the same that a lot of other people feel about how we haven't made a lot of advancement in 50 years. But my dad is also the same, out of the same mouth came, but then you see Obama, and when Obama became president, that was because we mobilized, all of us. We mobilized not only the African-American population, but, there was a large young voter registration that mobilized. There was a large, HBCU and everybody that came together to make sure that happened. And then if you look at that young people today, they have lived in an era where they've seen a Black president. It was never seen as like, oh, we could never have a Black president. So to me, if you're 18, if you're 24, 22, the schematic of voting is much different than someone if you were to say like 70 or 60, because you've seen it at work. And I think that's the whole thing. Like Kwame was saying, it is not just one thing, it's all of it together. And we can't get to an Obama and to making change if we don't go to the polls.
Well, it's just 2 things Kwame said, and I want to piggyback off of that. First of all, why is it the Black community is the only community that's what I would call voter shamed? And let me give you an example what I mean by voter shaming. When Black people are told, well, our ancestors died to vote, do we really, really want to relegate the death of our people to voting? Because they died because they could not even walk down the freaking street, or they had Klan, crosses in front. They had their churches bombed. They were just trying to live. You know what I'm saying? Voting, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are we the only group of people being voter shamed about that? White folks don't vote. I don't ever hear Hispanics told their people died to vote. Asians, no other group was told that our ancestors died to vote, so you better get out there and vote. I mean, why are we constantly told that?
The only thing I'll say about that is white people specifically weren't murdered when they went to try to vote. Hispanic people specifically weren't murdered when they were tried to vote. And so I think it doesn't mean that the entire Black struggle equates with voting. Once again, it's a piece, and it's like we have always tried to claw our humanity, our quality back into who we are as Americans. Like, we're just as equal. We deserve as much respect. We deserve all those rights. And every time we try and claw that humanity back, it's like we're beaten down. And I think one of the things we've always been denied is the equality at the voting booth, whether it's voter disenfranchisement, whether it's, poll taxes, all kinds of things that have kept us from being equal participants in the democratic process. Even though we died for this country, we fought in every war. Crispus Attucks was the first Black man and the first American to die in the revolution. So it's like we've done everything to be equal citizens, but we've been denied kind of some of the privileges of being equal citizens, whether it's the GI Bill or whether it's Fair Housing Act, all kinds of things like that. So I think that when I think about what our people died for, no, it's not as simplistic as they died because I should vote. But I do think there are a lot of people who walked up into a polling place in Alabama in 1905 and got their head blown off for being, an uppity Negro, someone who's going to demand a right to vote. And, for me, I just want to honor people. That's a personal choice.
Yeah, but this is my thing. I understand the history of that. We all know it. Like I said, I talk about our history a lot here. But honoring my ancestors would be to look when they seen the system, definitely violent and terrorist against them. And if you look at a system that's continually rigged against the Black American community, I mean, we can look at housing, home loans. We can look at the way police handle us. We can look at the way judges handle us, prosecutors. You can look at every area of life. You can look at medical racism, some things that voting can't change, right? But only we could change outside of that due to certain kind of pressure we can apply on mobilization, right? So for me, your movement about PWIs, and HBCUs, I believe that could be more powerful at changing the education and promoting, us to build a Black economy. Because see, the issue that I'm having with that is that we talked earlier about recruiting our kids, right? I'd rather stronger drives to get kids to go to HBCUs and just as aggressive as those PWIs are, I like to see HBCUs. And if you don't have something, then what is it? Why? I'm like, why is it we don't have the funding to support these colleges and in our community? Why is it?
Phil, why can't we do both?
Yeah, they're not
both at the same time, because they're both a huge need right now. And I'll tell you this much, the fear that I would have in relation to your question is this: if you get these elite athletes who may be recruited by UCLA or UNC and all, and they instead go to, let's just say, an HBCU who can't afford to keep them there because they don't have training tables, they don't have, at some HBCUs, they have to have, like George, for instance, at Clark, where he was at, they didn't have enough money where they could meet all the needs. So sometimes you might see where if the kids don't get back to school before the cafeteria closes, they get $7 for a meal. And that's standard. That is not a diss to CAU because we love them. It's a standard meal for $7. But if you're 20, $7 is not going to get you far. And they can't get jobs because they're working as being athletes. So to me, it's all those little things that mean the same. If If we all said, okay, we'll take the responsibility as HBCU heroes, as supporters, we will make sure that our athletes are fed. We will make sure that our athletes are getting all of the essentials and necessities that they do at PWIs. If we take that as a responsibility, yes, then they will go. But if they go, here's the problem you're going to have. If they go to HBCUs and they have a bad experience, then they're going to tell other athletes who might have gone to HBCUs, oh, I went over to such and such and I didn't have a good experience. They didn't have this, they didn't have that. That's not a good look. It's not a good thing. So I think we have to build both. We've got to be able to fund all of the resources, just like they do at PWIs. I'm a firm believer if we could do that, because one thing about HBCUs that I love, they teach civic responsibility. They feel like family. You won't find a person that went to an HBCU that doesn't talk about how much they feel like family and how long their legacy is, whether it's with their parents, like Kwame's parents went to Howard, or whether it's the relationships that they build while they're there that are long-term and long-lasting. The entire family component, the education that you get is top-notch. More doctors, more Black doctors are produced at HBCUs than in any other universities. So it's not the education, it's the resources. And that's why when you're saying those things, I agree with you, but I don't think it's one and one. I think it's both. I think we've got to do it all, put it all together, and we got to fund the HBCUs for the resources, and we got to get people out to vote.
Yeah. And I'm happy that they're turning up the temperature in the streets. I really am. I'm happy that social justice and racial justice and activism is turned up to a point of 1964, 1965 civil rights level, that we are making noise, that people are hearing our arguments, that Black Lives Matter is showing up on the court at the NBA, that LeBron James is out here talking about it, that, young rappers are out here talking about it, because white people are getting inundated by it. Even if they don't want to listen to it, they have to hear it.
It shows up in their NFL games.
And so it's like they have to hear it. And I think that's part of changing, like you're talking about, that like white supremacy structure that's obvious. Voting is not going to, you're right, voting is not going to tear that down by itself. But voting can put in people into office that can change some of those policies, that can change the way that we do the judiciary, etc.
Kwame, you're right. You're 100% right, Kwame. I will not even see. This is a problem with voting. Voting is not a problem. It's not. I said that I believe in voting. I've never said I don't believe in it. I just said that when it comes to particular candidates, if you're not going to do what we need you to do, if you're not going to give us nothing tangible, then don't expect us to show up. Now, if you're giving us something tangible for our community, not this people of color thing, we don't do that. That's not a protected class. Minorities, not a protected class. Okay. White women is considered minority. We talking about Black Americans. That's what we center on here. You give us something, I'll gladly go vote for you. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who watch will gladly go vote if you give us something for our community that's tangible. But we're not going to be carrying the water for other groups no more. And we just sitting there looking silly. No, that's not going to happen. But we would gladly vote. I believe in voting. I'm letting you know that I believe in it. Just give us the candidates, and you're not responsible for candidates. You're not. But what I'm saying is, if the right candidates come with giving us tangibles in the Black community, you'll see the Black community show up.
And I think you're right. I think that part of the temperature being raised in the street, right, is people saying, what are you going to specifically do for Black people? What is your Black agenda? Mm-hmm. And so I think that dialogue has forced politicians like Mike Bloomberg, who created his Greenwood initiative, and Mike Bloomberg just gave $100 million to Black medical schools and relieving debt, etc. I think that folks like Joe Biden, they may have said, oh, I can say these things to Black people and promise them this, but now because the temperature has been turned up in the streets through activism, through social media, they know they have to have a specific Black agenda to get the vote of many African Americans, in particular our demographic, which is Gen Z folks at HBCUs through HBCU Heroes. So I do think that young people are doing a great job of demanding tangible things for the Black community before they vote for anyone. And I mean, I encourage that. I don't think it's anything wrong with like demanding something from somebody for their vote.
Well, that's what the NBA players showed in the WNBA and the other leagues, because to me, they said, we will shut this down, all of it, unless we demand justice, we demand social change, and we will shut this down. And as long as people have been waiting to see games, that to me was such a powerful reflection of, not even, like you said, Phil, not even the vote power, but that was a coming together, a unity statement that was beyond measure, just very impactful and very powerful. What will they do next? People keep saying that, but they can't be responsible for the entire country and the voting system and everything else. It's one part of the car, like Kwame says, but it certainly is a very valuable part, and why people like us and people like the HBCUers have to get out here and do our part.
Well, like you said, it's inclusive, right? And I believe, like I said, education is definitely, the deal. And one thing you said that kind of bothered me earlier, Miss Tracy, is this. We do this with Black people a lot. And I always say it's a lot of self-hate. So that's kind of like that. You go to a Black-owned business and something happened that you don't like. You see, that's why I don't go to Black-owned business. Now, you went to Walmart, Target, CVS, and all this not owned by Black folk. And something happens to you there, but you go right back. But something happened with Black people or whatever it may happen. It could just be a small misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. Now you're telling people don't go over there. I mean, just like you said about the HBCU. Okay, one person may have an experience and start to try to work it out. Mm-hmm. Whatever it may be, you're going to go in and tell people don't go there. I did a commentary, I think yesterday, about how we're so quick as Black people to lift everybody on our shoulders financially. Yes. And we're the only group who do that. Like, you don't hear white folks telling other white people don't go to white universities because you see what white people do. Nobody do that.
But us, yeah.
And that bothers me to the core that we do that.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, that's short.
And if I could say this real quick, Kwame, the thing that I love about our people, what you said, Phil, bothers me too. But on the flip side, what I do love, people ask Kwame, George, and I all the time, so you all went to PWIs, why are you doing all this for HBCUs? And I say, like, imagine if we are able to mobilize millions of people and we can get everyone who didn't go to an HBCU to have the same experience that we're doing and get out here and fund these HBCUs. Because the thing is, Morehouse and Howard, again, love them, but they do get most of the shine. When you have a CAU or you have, like a Langston University or some of the other schools who do just as great work, but they don't get the shine. For us, it's a leveling of the playing field so that everybody can be kind of like a Morehouse or a Howard, and then when you get $100 million, let's split it 100 ways and give every HBCU $1 million. Those are the kinds of things that $1 million at a smaller school. If you think of Jackson State, Mississippi, if you think of those schools, if they got $1 million from some of these sponsor brands or celebrities, it would revolutionize their athletic departments and other things that they're doing. So my point to you is, I think we should make sure that we're working towards everyone having a good experience at HBCUs. If players who are elite come to an HBCU, let's be able to provide them that experience so then they can recruit other HBCUs players that would come.
And our goal, Tracy, on the economic side is really to be $1 billion foundation that helps to level this playing field. So, we hear about folks like Mackenzie Bezos, Jeff Bezos of Amazon's wife, who walked away from that marriage with $38 billion. And Mackenzie is a Princeton graduate. But what she did is she gave $200 million to HBCUs. And as Tracy said, it wasn't to all 107 HBCUs. I think it was only to 6 HBCUs, which is still great gifts. I mean, $40 million went to Howard, the largest single gift they had ever gotten in history. But we're looking at gifts like that and relationships like that. So, Mackenzie Bezos, if you're listening, or her team, we want to bring that into our foundation because we want to empower all HBCUs across the board and level that playing field and raise the competitiveness through funding and through resources and through publicity so that they can shine just as much as the next institution.
Yeah, and what you said about that, I remember about I think it was a year or two ago, I went to Bethune-Cookman, and we had done some filming at Bethune-Cookman. When I was there and I was discussing, I was like, well, why isn't the HBCUs even utilizing people like myself or other people, that's in the social media space to go to the HBCUs, like to film it, to talk with people, you know, like whoever tour guide they want to use, and try to let people know, hey, listen, we do have something to offer, and try to, because I noticed that the marketing isn't there.
No.
And I'm like, listen, even if you start off with somebody like, you know, in the social media space, everybody using social media influencers now. Let's call it what it is. I mean, Tracy, you know that. Yeah. So why aren't they doing that?
And I'll tell you what, you got a good point there, because there are a lot of HBCUs that don't have Instagram, or they don't have Twitter, or that sort of thing. It's a manpower issue, and again, a resource and funding. Almost every single problem that you can point to at an HBCU, it's a resource issue. It is because most people that I know that work at HBCUs, like, you know, in our nonprofit, you do one person for 5 different jobs. It's a lot. And so sometimes things like social media marketing and those kinds of things kind of get put on the back burner. But I will tell you this is the time and the space and the day, especially with these voter drives and athletes and entertainers wanting to get out here and want to lift their voices and use their power and their you know, everything that they have, their reputations and things to really go for elevating and amplifying HBCUs. And so to me, I totally get what you're saying, Phil. I think it should happen. And I don't think that maybe sometimes people just think about it if they knew more people like you. But think about that. How often would someone have to, if you're at an HBCU, you'd have to know a Phil or have someone to beat down the trees to get in touch with the Phil, to have Phil come to your school to do a program. And they sometimes just don't have enough people. That's really what it is.
I'm very easy to get a hold to. All they gotta do is either reach out to me or my guy Kellen, and trust me, I would love to go to HBCUs and showcase them. I remember back in the day on BET, when homeboy that show Hits from the Streets. I don't know, you remember he used to go to the colleges all the time, the HBCUs.
We need to start that back.
Huh?
We need to get you, Phil.
Yeah. See, I go to HBCUs, no problem. Like I say, that's stuff, like things like that I like to do. You know what I'm saying? The HBCUs, the different, you know, like I said, and he used to show them a lot. And a lot of people like used to be curious about HBCUs when he would do that, or when of course you say Howard has been shown more than anywhere else. Yeah, most of Howard has been shown.
But let's show up Bethune-Cookman or FAMU or, you know, like I said, at Fort Valley, there's so many great schools.
I'm surprised Bethune-Cookman isn't like a hot one, because the beach is literally right down the street.
Yeah.
Literally. I'm surprised that's not the one people be going to.
Yeah. Bethune-Cookman gets a little bit of shine from Vince Carter, you know, who went to UNC with us. His mom taught at Bethune-Cookman, and he was right there at Daytona Beach. And so he talks about Bethune-Cookman here and there, but yeah, it should get a lot more shine.
Yeah, so you know, like with that being said, Kwame, you know, I said we definitely thank you and Miss Tracy for coming on the show. Like I say, you tell people, you know, how to get in touch with you guys about the HBCU Heroes. I mean, because that's, you know, very important, and I believe that all this revolution you say it should happen, we should be revolutionizing and going back to the Black colleges, right? Yeah, I believe 100%. I mean, because we revolution and going,
and we should fund them. We should make sure that we put our money there instead of just saying like, I'm going to just donate or not do anything. If it's only $10 a year, give back to an HBCU.
Yeah. And so if I had to summarize it, Phil, I would say, one, thank you for having us on the show and being able to discuss some of these issues. If folks want to learn more, we encourage them to do a couple things. Go to HBCUheroes.org. I repeat, HBCUheroes.org. You can learn about our voting initiative there. You can learn about our Adopt an HBCU drive, which we're doing right now with celebrities like D.L. Hughley and Bill Bellamy and current NBA players and current NFL players to drive voting and participation. And then also everything that we've done so far in response to COVID, like raising computers and a computer drive for folks to have computers at home as they go home from COVID at HBCUs, and even what we're going to do going into the future for the HBCU space. So we're very excited to be funding HBCUs. We encourage other foundations to join us. We're already partnered with things like More Than a Vote, which is Michelle Obama's organization, and Rock the Vote for this initiative. But big funding sponsors, whether it's a JP Morgan or an Intel and Dell we've worked with in the past, we're looking to bring on other sponsors to fund our initiatives and get these resources directly to HBCU. So once I said, Mackenzie Bezos, if you're out there, look up HBCU Heroes. We're ready to partner with you to make some more good trouble.
And Phil, if I could just close in saying as well, we also can be found on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, at HBCU Heroes. That's HBCU HEROES. So we're at HBCU Heroes on all of those. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, Phil. And we're going to keep you to your word. We're going to figure out some kind of way that we can be digital soldiers.
Yeah, you're going to be at a HBCU.
Yes, we're going to highlight
you don't even know.
Yes. Phil said it here, guys. So we got to get you on to some of these campuses virtually now.
Oh yeah. Oh, like I said, no, you know, either virtually or, well, I preferably prefer to go to them when of course, after COVID, you know, it's just because virtual could only do so much, to be honest with you, but you actually have to go to these places. And really, like you said, sometimes people just don't even know they exist. Sometimes that's really what a lot of it is.
Yeah. Visibility.
So if you know your friends at the HBCUs that say, hey, a brother say he'll go with his team down there to the school and showcase it, you know, with minus some business things we have to take care of, you know, it's something small. But like I said, we definitely thank you guys for what you're doing, you know, trying to get the kids to go to HBCUs, so we can just, like I say, get that funding up and get these athletes. If you get the athlete, trust me, that's when all the money will come to the school anyway.
That's right.
So we got to come back, because I'm inviting us back to your show, but we got to talk about this more, because that's what has to happen. We got to get the athletes, and then we got to keep them there. We got to have funding to keep them there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so thank you very much. You know, everyone got the contact information. Ms. Tracy put that in there for the HBCU Heroes. And if you have any other questions, we'll leave you know, a pinned comment. You guys can ask questions maybe that you have, maybe you want to donate, etc. So thank you, Kwame and Tracy, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.